Hi everyone, my name is Diana. Welcome back to my sewing room, and today I have a really fun project for you. It is called Sweater Weather. It is by Running Dough Quilts for Villa Rosa Designs, and we have a lot of these patterns here in the shop. They make fantastic beginners patterns because they're usually done with just basic shapes like half square triangles or squares or rectangles. And so what I've done with this quilt is I have made it in some gorgeous grunge fabrics. I had Judy pick out two for me that contrasted really well, because one of the things that I wanted to make sure of was that I had good contrast like the original pattern. The original pattern uses this gorgeous blue and white, and Judy picked out that fantastic yellow and purple for me, and the contrast works really, really well. So one of the things that I get a lot when I'm talking to people is, as a Studio 180 instructor, they'll come to me and they will say, how do you take a pattern that's already been written and make it fit a tucker tool? And certified instructors, we call that tuckerizing a design. And I do it all the time. Anytime I can tuckerize a pattern, I will tuckerize a pattern. And I will tell you that I do teach a whole entire class in this on the shop, but I'm going to just give you just a few basics today to show you how you can recognize what to look for and how to translate that into a tucker tool. So what I have done is I have broken down the quilt into this block, and this is the basic block that you can see here. It's this one here, and actually in the quilt itself, this block is 14 inches, so I've shrunk it down a little bit so that you can see what it looks like. And I've looked at it and I've said, okay, what are the different pieces of this block that I need to be concerned with? So I've looked at this basic square here. And on this area, I can see that this is just a 4-patch. And within that 4-patch, I actually have half square triangles here and here, and then some basic squares here and here. So the tool that I used for this is my tucker trimmer. And my tucker trimmer does a number of things, but the thing that it does the best is half square triangles. And I have another video on this. If you go back onto our Facebook page and look at our videos, I've got a video on the tucker trimmer itself and how to use it. I'm not going to go into that today. So I took a look at the block, like I said, and I discovered that this was a 4-patch, and that basically it ends up being a 9-patch when you put it together. And I'm going to explode this block out for you in just a second. But I discovered that it's basically a 9-patch and that I needed to make these half square triangles. So I went to my pattern, and let's say, for instance, my pattern says, okay, I need to cut squares that are 2 7/8 inches, and then put them together, draw my lines, sew on them, cut them in half, and then press. Well, I know that 7/8 inch means that I've added 1/8 of an inch onto whatever the unfinished size is. And let me give you a little bit of information on that. So if my pattern says cut squares that are 2 7/8 inches, I know that they are going to be 2.5 inches unfinished. Those half square triangles are going to be 2.5 inches unfinished, and they're going to be 2 inches finished. So I need to figure out where to look on my tucker trimmer instructions on how to get that measurement. So Deb does things a little bit differently with her instructions. Instead of doing finished and unfinished, she says finished and cut. So that cut size of a pieced unit is actually the unfinished size, okay? The finished size of the piece unit is exactly the same as the finished size. So I know that if I've got blocks that are going to finish out at 2 inches, they are going to be unfinished at 2.5 inches. So I need my starting squares for my half square triangles are going to be 3 inches. So I would take my 3-inch squares, I'd put them together, I'd draw my lines down the center, I'd sew, I'd trim them in half, I'd press them, and then I'd trim them down with the tucker trimmer. And again, I've got a video on that on our Facebook page. Well, what do you do if you've come to a pattern that doesn't give you the unfinished or finished size of your units? that's where you may need to play a little bit. And if that has happened, what I try to do is I try to break down that block, just like I was saying, and I try to figure out what those blocks are made up of. So as you can see here, I have exploded this block, okay? And I have got my 4 quadrants, and then I've got my 4 patches here in each corner with my half square triangles and my regular squares. I've got my pieces that I've cut that are going to go in the center. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 4 patches together first, and then I'm going to add on these rectangles and the square, and then obviously it comes out to this finished piece. So as I'm looking at this and I say, you know what, my pattern doesn't tell me what size this is supposed to be. There are a couple of things that I can do to figure out what size that's going to be. First thing I might want to do is try to figure out what size this square is going to be, because I know that these squares, this half square triangle and this square, are going to come out to be the same size. So I would look at my pattern and I would see, oh, hey, did they have a 2.5 inch unfinished square that they have me cut? Yes, they do. So I know that my half square triangle, since it's going to be right next to it, need to be unfinished at 2.5 inches. Well, what if I can't figure that out from a square? What if that's not there? Here's what I do. I will go ahead and I will make 1 unit using the instructions from my pattern, and then I will go ahead and take my regular ruler and I will measure to see how big that unit is. So for instance, if I were to do this in the traditional way, and it says 2 7/8, so I did my 2 7/8 inch squares, and I finished them out, and I realized that they're supposed to be unfinished, at 2.5 inches. So what I would do then is I'd say, oh, I know that it's supposed to be unfinished at 2.5 inches. So I'm going to look for that cut size right there on my instructions. I'm going to look for that cut size, and I can see that it says 2.5 inches. That's what it's unfinished. That's my cut size. So then I'm going to go down to the 3, and I'm going to use my instructions, and I'm going to finish my block. So that's just a basic way of looking how to tuckerize a pattern. I do teach a more in-depth class on this at the shop. Not only do I tell you kind of how to look for these things with half square triangles, but I go over several of her tools. I also go over how to deal with looking for the comparisons in yardage. So if I know that my pattern says I need 2 yards of a fabric, and that will give me exactly what I need. If I don't tuckerize a pattern, I also talk to you about how to deal with tuckerizing your yardage as well. So look for that class in the shop. One other tool that I used when I was making this pattern, if you look right here, and you can see on the quilt itself, you can look right here, and these are just 4 patches. And Deb does have a 4-patch square up tool, and there's a couple of different things that you can do with this tool, and I'm not going to give you a tutorial on this one today, but there are a couple of different things that you can do with this tool. You can square up 4 patches, but there are other units that you can make with it as well. And here you can see that it looks very similar to her other tools, where you've got several different lines and places to line up your centers and a way to turn and rotate and cut those. And again, I'll go over this one in a different video for you. So that might be another one that you want to look to use. So in this particular pattern, I was able to use both my tucker trimmer and my 4-patch square up to make this quilt. And so my quilt came out very even. All my rows fit together perfectly because everything was cut to a perfect size using my tools. Again, I was able to use those fantastic grunge fabrics. You can see here in my sample that I used kind of a maroon color and a gray. Lori has brought in 40 different basic grunge fabrics. So if you are looking to make a project like Costa's Hoop Sisters Mystery Quilt, give the shop a call and they will be able to pick out those fabrics for you. They've got them all listed online. Next week, Costa will be going over the new instructions for the next blocks on the mystery quilt. He'll be doing that on Thursday. He's also got a video coming on Tuesday. And from what I hear, we do have a new machine coming into the shop. They are going to give a demo on that one as well. We want to say thank you so much for continuing to watch our videos while we're under stay-at-home orders. We're going to continue to do these while we are under stay-at-home orders. We really do miss seeing everybody in the shop, but like I said before, Frank and Lori have decided to keep the shop closed to foot traffic, but you can order online 24 hours a day at wishuponaquilt.com, and they do offer curbside pickup Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and check our website for shipping information. Shipping is very fast. They do have people working in the shop to complete orders on a daily basis. Also, check out our pre-order for our new Kimberbell project that's going to be coming up in August. It's a Kimberbell mystery quilt. We've got that listed on our front page as well. Continue to tune in for my videos. I've got some fun ones coming up, including the brand new Star 60 ruler from Studio 180. I hope to have that one ready for you next Monday. We really do miss you. Can't wait to see you back in the shop. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.